Hello class, now we come to lecture 3 for this week, and lecture 4, sorry, and that is going to be now on the Aryans. So let me explain a few things about the Aryans. The Aryans are going to be especially the intellectual founders of Hinduism in the sense of bringing forth ideas that will take it from being a very primitive religion, and then the Dravidians, which didn't have a writing system, which um, had a very if you want to say infantile or undeveloped conception of religion in the world, to now being a very complex system. And so what you're going to have here is the Aryans came into the picture at about 1500, and the common understanding about this is that when the Dravidians on the year 3000 got there and settled and developed the area, by the year 1500 they were quite dilapidated and in decline. And so the Aryans came in. They are going to be a conquering force of nomadic invaders from the Western Hemisphere. And so the Aryans are going to come into the scene, into an already decrepit and decaying civilization, and they are going to take it over by force. If you want to think of these Westerners, nomadic invaders, think of cowboys in their ordinary stereotypical way. They are going to be lusty livers. They are going to love to drink and gamble and fight, and they are going to go and plunder different places. So if you are a cowboy, I did not mean to insult you by that. It's just the stereotypical description of them. So they like to drink, womanize, travel, and plunder. And so what you're going to have with this Aryan people is that they are going to share a very similar religion with the Greeks, and they are going to have these divinities, and they're going to have this name for these divinities that have limited power. Now the Aryans developed the writing style, which is called Sanskrit. So that's the most important thing that you should remember, is that they brought about the writing system that the Hindus will use from then on. And I put up a sample of what that looks like for you, and then I also put a little table that has several words from Sanskrit that have later been adopted into the English language and German and Italian and Spanish and French. So even though this language is quite far removed, it is still very much connected with the European languages. So the Vedas then is going to be the inspired writings that the Hindus are going to adhere to. This is the Vedic period, and the Vedas literally mean wisdom. That's the word. It is the cumulative insight that has been given to the Hindus so that they may become civilized and they may worship the gods in due manner. So these are the oldest and most sacred scriptures, and they contain a vast amount of information, which I will describe to you in the next lecture. But for now, I like to shift, and I like to emphasize something. There is a hymn of creation, which I put there in that Prezi that you have on click about 68 or 69. And what you're going to have there is the hymn of creation. I want you to read that side by side with Purusha and the story of creation that was given by the Dravidians, and notice the contrast that there is to be had. So I will read this with you, and I will raise questions and see if you can make sense of it. And this, by the time you're done with this section on Hinduism, you can look back and say, oh, now I see. I can make sense of Hinduism in its philosophical sense by just having read that thoughtfully, having read the hymn of creation. So the hymn of creation is going to begin very differently from the story of Purusha. It's not just one being that gets cut up into pieces and then everything else is made out of. That's a very simple story, very simple narrative. I usually, what I do is challenge my student and say, hey, if you can provide a meaningful interpretation of this passage, I will gladly give you extra credit for my class. Now, you guys can take me upon it if you want to and suggest some alternative interpretations of what this means, but I'll go ahead and read it and then comment on it as I go. So notice how it begins. It says, at first was neither being nor non-being. Now you have to pause there and say, what am I reading? At first was neither being nor non-being. Is there anything else besides being and non-being? Those are two mutually exclusive categories and all-encompassing. That's what you call the law of identity in philosophy. And either something is or is not, but it can neither be and not be. It's a logical contradiction, something you cannot make sense of. So in the beginning there wasn't neither something nor nothing. What is the third alternative? Can you think? Can you fathomably imagine what the third alternative will be? This is the law of excluded middle, either or. And so they begin this story of creation with, there was neither being nor non-being. And at that point, you're just left to baffle and simply seek to imagine something that is beyond conception. And then it says, there was not air, not yet sky beyond. What was wrapping? Where? In whose protection? Was water there? Unfathomable deep? What was there? Well, you said there was neither being nor non-being, so can there be something there or can there be nothing? Neither. There was no death then, not yet deathlessness. Of night or day there was not any sign. The one breathed without breath by its own impulse. Other than that was nothing at all. So a bit of a perplexing, kind of incoherent paragraph, but yet it's of course signifying something. You just have to exert your mind to try to make sense of how deep and how much they're challenging your normal conceptions of rationality. Darkness was there. Now, was darkness something or nothing or neither? All wrapped around by darkness, and all was water indiscriminate. So remember, we heard that in the study of Genesis. In the beginning was God in the beginning created, and there was water, and the Holy Spirit was hovering over the waters. So there is this blob of water somehow. Then that which was hidden by void, that one emerging, steering through power of ardor, came to be. So there was water. I guess there was something. But you can't say that because that's not what it said before. That's not what it meant. So there was this void and this water, and then this kind of came to be. And then you have, I don't know if you're familiar with the mythology in Greece, where you have Eros, love coming into play. You have chance and love. And in the beginning, love arose, and love is kind of like this. It is the propelling force that brings forth the different formations in the universe. It is that which guides all that comes to pass, which was the primal germ of self, mind. The seers, searching in their hearts with wisdom, discover the connection of being in non-being. Again, another statement that is quite difficult to process. So the seers somehow were able to understand how being, there is being in non-being. Now the problem with a term like non-being is that it's not nothing. It is absolutely nothing. No being, not just no substance or not personal being, but nothing at all. It is utterly and completely nothing. When you look at the air, you say, well, there is nothing there. So no, we know that is not true. There are quantum particles that are popping in and out. There is light waves. There's a whole bunch of things in the air, particles and germs and whatever else. But to say nothing in this case, non-being, will mean nothing, zero, nada, absolutely beyond any particles, nothing. A crosswise line cut being from non-being. So somehow there is a way of distinguishing being and non-being. What was described above it? What below? Bearers of seed there were, and mighty forces, thrust from below and forward move above. Okay? A lot of language, a lot of commotion, but what does it actually mean? And then there is this question: who really knows? Who can presume to tell it? Whence was it born? Whence issued this creation? Where did it come from? Even the gods came after its emergence, so the gods cannot be the creators of the creation because they themselves are finite and created. So who can tell you? Then who can tell whence it came to be? So where did things come to be? Notice the natural necessity of the human mind to want to make sense of what that there to claim that there must be something that has always been there. We just don't know what it is. But there must be something, otherwise things would have come out of nothing, and that would be an impossibility. And so here you are now, the closing paragraph, and in this closing paragraph you will kind of have a summation of what went on. It says, that out of which creation has arisen, whether he held it firm or he did not, he who surveys it in the highest heavens, he surely knows, or maybe he does not. So your only hope was that that one which is able to oversee the entire heavens will be able to tell you, but maybe he knows it or he doesn't know it. So what you have here now is an account of the world that will challenge your conceptions of thought itself. They are pushing you, they're having to stretch your mind beyond the point of being able to conceptualize it. So what we know as what's called the laws of thought, what's called the law of identity, ASA, the law of non-contradiction, which is either A or non-A, and the law of no, both A and non-A, sorry, and then the law of excluded middle, which is something is either a pen or is not a pen, but it can be both. And so here Hinduism is going to give you a glimpse of the complexities that are going to follow from it. How capable is the human mind of understanding reality? How well does bipolarities like A and non-A or binary thinking, how well equipped is binary thinking to speak of the world? And so the basis for those distinctions is going to be called into question in Hinduism, and it would it's as things unfold, then it would become more and more compelling upon the mind to abandon those categories. So Hinduism wants you to do away with this primarily Western logical way of employing the laws of thought to try to make sense of things by dissecting them. So here you have it. The Aryans and the Dravidians are going to both merge, and then they will become one culture, and that is Hinduism. And each one had their own contributions. Of course, the Dravidians were founders of the infrastructure and the caste system, and then the Aryans is going to be both the language and the Vedas. So keep that in mind as we continue on, and we'll continue on to the subsequent lectures. Bye.